Wrong Turn 3 Left for Dead is the third Wrong Turn movie and the first time I've ever seen this one. So, watching this Wrong Turn 3 for the first time, I think in terms of the movies I've seen so far, the first one is obviously the best one. I think the first one is still really good and really entertaining, and it's not anything to write home about in terms of originality, but in terms of thrills, I think the first Wrong Turn is really cool and really entertaining. And Elijah Dushku is in it, so that's a good bonus too. But in terms of Wrong Turn 2, I really enjoyed. I thought that it was really fun and self-aware. And Wrong Turn 3, which I'm going to talk about today, I think is just on that level as Wrong Turn 2. Like it's still a really fun, really silly ride like the second one. It's not as self-aware, but it's still really fun and really entertaining. Um, the funny thing though, when I started watching it, I was looking through the actors and I was like whenever they show the credits, and I was like, oh, that's a bad sign. There's no actors I've ever heard of. But then there's one guy, I don't know which one he is. Like, he's one of the prison inmates where he looks very similar, but I'm like, I feel like I've seen him in something, but I guess I don't know what it is, but he looked really similar to me. But watching the actors' names in the credits, I was like, "Ooh, is that a bad sign that there's no actors I've ever heard of in this movie?" And not really, because I like this movie, but like, and the fourth one does that too, which I'll talk about next. I've seen the third and fourth one so far, but in this one, like, I was like, oh, that's a lot of actors I've never heard of. That's might not be a good sign, but it was fine. It was just weird seeing nobody I've ever heard of, because usually there's like a little actor role where you're like, oh, okay, I can see who this is, in these type of horror movies. But usually there's one person I might know, but I didn't know anybody in this one in the credits. Um, and I didn't mind the score. The score in this movie is actually really solid. Like, it was actually it was a fun, intimidating kind of score, and it was one that I kind of forget about. Like, I wrote on my notes like to say that because I kind of already forgot about the score, but even though it's forgettable, like, I remembered in the movie liking it. And I think it's only forgettable because it's in a sequel in a franchise of films, which kind of probably meld together and like blend together, where you can't tell which one has which thing in it. So that's why I especially are ever in notes, because I need to remember what because watching these, if I watch them back to back, I'm like, okay, I need to definitely write notes to remember this is the one that did this, or this is the one that did this. These little things in the movie that I'll talk about. But I didn't mind the score, and then I like how the movie opens with a group of kids again canoeing or kayaking down. It was kayaking or canoeing, one of those, down this river in West Virginia again, of course, and then like everybody gets killed. I think there's one person that you don't see get killed, but everybody gets killed at the opening, and it's really entertaining and funny because there's this moment where, like, it starts out with just, it felt like it was kind of like the second one, where it was doing all these tropes in a funny way. Like, there was this girl immediately took off her shirt, and then her boyfriend came up and she's like, "Do you think I'm a slut?" And he's like, "No, I like you for your tits." Like, it's so silly because it's like, it feels like it's kind of self-aware on purpose, like, oh, it's supposed to be stupid. And it's funny because then immediately, like, an arrow flies through her tit and it like literally like splatters, and then like she goes, ah, and then like her eye gets impaled too with another arrow, and it was genuinely funny because it was such a out of the blue reaction to her, to that happening to her, and just it was timed really well with that jump scare. But it was funny though, it was really humorous, especially with the dumb line she said, and the guy said, and then all these people just start getting killed immediately. They don't even last like 5 minutes into the movie, which I thought was fun. It was just really silly. And I know horror movies do that already, but they usually do like one person or two people, and that's what the first couple Wrong Turns did. But in this one, it's just like, oh, okay, we're gonna just completely kill off these people quickly without having them in it at all. They're just gonna die on screen 5 minutes into it, which I thought was really funny and just really entertaining and a surprise. And you would have thought it wouldn't work, but with this type of humor in these movies, it works, especially in the sequels so far. And then there's another guy who dies at the beginning, where like he steps on something, and then he's cut into 3 pieces, like this part, and then his shoulder parts, like he's literally cut into 3 pieces. And the CG effect is really awful, but it's funny. It's just fun because it's so over the top and so crazy. So all these people get killed, and then immediately cut to penitentiary, which I thought was kind of a weird thing to cut to, but I do like that they did something different with this one, like how in the second one it was a reality TV show where they were filming in the woods, and then in this one it's a penitentiary where all these criminals are taken on a bus, but encounter the cannibals, or the cannibal, the one. Since I think the other two have died since the first and second one. So I like that it cuts to the penitentiary and then has the story of the cops and inmates fighting each other to whenever they're trying to get transferred. And I like the fact that they do encounter that cannibal who wrecks their van. They all have to get out and survive in the woods. And I like the fact that it's not dumb because they all try to stay together. And Wrong Turn so far, in the first 3 at least, do a good job of like, oh, we're going to try to stay together for the most part. I mean, there's of course, in every horror movie, there's going to be somebody who splits up, but usually it's like, we figure it out, we got to stay together. And I think they did it in the second one, but the first one they did that definitely, for a majority of it. But like I said, they do split these characters up some ways, but I think they do it smarter than some horror movies. And I like how the cops and the prison inmates find this girl who survived the murder from the beginning of the movie, where all these people were killed. And I can't remember immediately if I saw her survive or if she just wasn't on screen. I can't remember, but I like the fact that they brought her in. So it's like these cops and prison inmates are already having a fight with each other where they're at gunpoint with each other, and then they bring in this girl who they bring in, and a lot of these inmates are of course like prison inmates where they're wanting to like rape her and stuff, which is shitty. But I like that brings the tension to it, where like that's not good that there's a girl around these people, and it's not good that all these people are at odds with each other in the woods with the cannibal running loose. I thought that is a fun way to establish tension and establish that these people can be wild cards, as you don't know what they're going to do next. And I think that really does give this movie some heft to it for a sequel. Like it really does a good job of being a different type of sequel, and I really do like that and enjoy that, and it's a different thing in this movie. Like the second one, I think that they did a good job of that, and it's kind of underrated. And then there's some like really like insane scenes like that are really disgustingly bloody, and I like whenever they do this over the top scenes, but there are some, like the beginning was over the top and silly, but there are some scenes where I'm like, oh man, like that's hard to, like I don't get squeamish at movies, but like, or horror movies, but man, there were some scenes where I was like, fuck, God, that's gonna be hard to watch. And there was one scene where this guy gets wrapped in freaking barbed wire, gets dragged down the road. Oh no, he gets wrapped completely in barbed wire all around. Gets dragged down, and just miles down the road. Just the thought of that scares me. I mean, it doesn't scare me in the movie, it's cheesy, but that just, wow, that really gets me. Like, those ideas are gross. Like, feeling the real life idea of that, like, just scary. It legitimately scares me. Not in the movie, like I said, because it's silly, but and then there's a lot of other silly moments where there's a scene where this guy is by a tree and he's talking to everybody else, and then you see up in the air the cannibal's got a giant pole, and he goes, ha ha, drops the pole and like impales the guy. And it's so funny because these movies, I know they're not trying to be overly serious, but I don't think they're trying to be as silly as they're wanting it to be, but they make it really silly. Like that scene, that's hilarious, where like he just laughs, the cannibal laughs at him and drops a pole, like he's a Looney Tunes character. Like, I think that's funny, I think that really works for me. And then I like whenever later towards the end of the movie, where this girl gets taken, she gets taken into this cannibal's house where like all these people are killed or trapped or wrapped up, there's a girl wrapped in barbed wire. I think it's the girl who gets shot in the boob earlier in the movie. Or maybe not, but there was another topless girl. That would make sense, but I don't remember if her eye was impaled or not. But anyway, this girl gets taken to the cannibal's house where all these people are trapped or tortured or dead. And there's one girl just topless, just sitting there, like wrapped in barbed wire, just saying, "Help me." And like, it looks like Saw. The way, the room they go into, they make it look shot like a Saw movie. And I was like, I mean, that's fine, but I was like, that looks a lot like Saw. Just these people dead and these traps set. I thought that reminded me so much of that, which is fine. It didn't like overly like make the whole movie about that, but that scene, I was like, it's shot like that. It looks like that. The color, just the torturous looking people looking tortured in there. It looks like Saw. And then there's one scene that kind of did gross me out, where this cannibal, like the cannibal guy, like eats this guy's brain, where he cuts his head open, and like that's been done a lot of these in horror movies, but it was effective in this, where he cut it off and you saw like in detail, and then like he got his brain and started picking at it, and ugh. And usually horror movies don't make me squeamish, but this one just did a good job of that. I was like, whoa. And Wrong Turn, I've noticed, does a good job of violence. Like the brutality of it is really good, and I think it's because the movie I bought, the 6-pack, they're all unrated. I think they're all unrated, but that's probably why they're so intensely gory. But even with an R, they'd have some moments, but not as many. But the gore in this is really great, and I liked how the girl kills the cannibal at the end. So like that would be the last thing. Like there's not any other cannibals. The other ones are dead. But wait, he comes back at the end of the movie. He still comes back. And then he gets a hook through his head. So you think he's dead now. But then, no. Then that other con guy who is established in the movie as being like he's supposed to be a guy like in hiding as a prison inmate, goes and kills the main guy, and like says, "You never trust a con man," and then like he gets all this money that was in there, and then you realize that the cannibal, you see his feet, only his feet, you don't see his face, but the cannibal was impaled through the head with a hook, so you thought he would be dead, right? I would have assumed he would be dead, but then you just saw an image of his feet on the ground, and that's how it ends. And you hear screaming. So, the cannibal's still alive, which I don't get that, because the next movie is a prequel, so I don't know, but this one is really fun, really entertaining. These characters are all fun. They're forgettable characters, but they're fun in which how the plot is perceived of these prison inmates and these cops in the woods with the cannibal. And I like that, just that premise. That's really fun. And like I said, like the second one, it establishes doing something different. The gore is insane. The kills are insane. The characters are, of course, flat and bland. But I expect that in this type of movie. So this was a really, really, honestly, another solid sequel from the Wrong Turn franchise. The second one I really enjoyed, and this one I enjoyed just as much. It's not as good as the first one, or not as intense as the first one, but it has so much fun in it. It's so silly, over the top. It makes it really entertaining to watch and really fun. So overall, this one I thought was a really solid sequel, and I'm going to talk about Wrong Turn 4 next, which I've already seen, and spoiler alert, I thought it was really terrible. So let's talk about the first terrible Wrong Turn movie, in my opinion, next. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.